Okay guys, welcome to this extra lesson. Today, let's see what you can do on top of Rails. I did not want to teach this part in our 8-week course, but there's also a lot of updates on how you use JavaScript libraries with Rails. So let's explore that today, and I hope that after today, there's some goals. After today, you know the latest way, right? The latest support way. Understand actually, and the latest support for JavaScript front end JavaScript libraries, right, on Rails, and also understand the difference between Rails 5.0.1 versus Rails, the upcoming Rails 5.1 is still in release candidate. You have beta and release candidate, RC 1, 2, and then you have the official version. And know a little bit, understand how to use React on Rails, right? Any other goals for this class? I think there's also one more here. There's asset pipeline. Right? What is it, right? How is it different from something else, right? From Webpack. Okay? Anything else? Someone said something.
You say it was paralyzed.
Pipeline. Pipeline, yeah. Right. So let's. I think this is basically the order will be today. I think the steps basically first, look at an existing Rails 5.0.1 app and understand how as a review because you should know this already, how asset pipeline work. And remember, in this case, it's also called sprocket. And you're like, what the heck is a sprocket? Yeah? And then we look at a new beta, right? It's still in beta, release candidate 5.1, Rails 5.1, right? So it's called release candidate RC, okay? And understand how it's different from everything else on Rails we have seen so far. The change from Rails 4 to Rails 5.0 is a little smaller, but it's big because of Action Cable. The change from Rails 5.0 to 5.1 is because of Webpack. So just remember something called Webpack. We'll get there. And then we understand Webpack. And then we will upgrade how to upgrade an existing Rails 5.0.1 app to it. And also React. Use that to install React. Okay, so I have right here the first thing, which is let's change this into this one. Okay, so look at existing this one and review how this works. So you guys can see from this log when I refresh, right? Take a look at the log. When I go and visit a page, by now, try to really understand what it's doing, okay? So, when the client hit the URL, it will go to the server, right? It goes to the server, and the first thing it does is looking at the route, and then parse the URL. So you see the timestamp. This is set to use our timestamp. It's in your config. Rails environment.rb, right? Set the timestamp. So I say, hey, a time zone. Sorry, not timestamp. Time zone. So we're using our local time zone right here, and then this is the IP address, but because it's localhost, this is the protected version of it. It doesn't give you the IP address. It just gives you this, and then not the IP4, IPv4 that you guys normally see. And then you like the routes file. Remember the routes file? In there you have the root and then home index, right? So that's the reason. So let's look at the route file. It's a bit it's a bit okay, hard to see, right? So root, right? Root, where's root? Okay, home index here, right? That's how it knows how to go to home controller and index and understand the default one, which is HTML. And it starts to render the correct template, but in that template, you will include other view files, right? So render partial, render template, there's some render call. That's why you see render collection. Collection is just a list of partial. Render this one because in the view I call render another view file. And you can also render partial. So all the partial you see the underscore render here. This looks reasonable. We all understand, right?
Yeah.
And then something very useful for you to see is how much time did it take on database and how much time did it take on view. And the total response time is the addition of those. It's the total. Make sense? So this time, this is the status HTTP 200, and this is the total time that the server, from the time the server receives your request until the time the server has a complete response to give back to your browser. Make sense? So it takes 260 seconds a millisecond on the browser, and on the server. If you go here and you go to, let's say, a network tab here, and then you refresh this page, again, now it's a little faster. You also see the time here, and then you can also see the number of milliseconds in the network tab. Now, on the browser, it measures more. It measures the time from here to the server, then the time the server processes, and the time the server back to you. Actually, obviously, the browser cannot know how long it takes from the browser to the server. It only knows two things. You are the server, I'm the client, right? I'm the browser. I know when I send you something, and I know when I receive something from you. That number is bigger than this number. We just know that. And if you take this number minus by that, then we have the time that I travel to you and the time you travel back to me. Right? So you can look into some of these requests. However, there's something interesting here. Let's look at the network tab. You see, over here, you see each one of these, right? You see there's some time in terms of milliseconds here, right? But there's only one file that goes to your browser. What file is it? This one, right? All the extra render call here, it's the time taken in each one. But then the total, right? It takes 165 milliseconds to give the browser the HTML to render. Is that enough? The browser actually wants more. Let's look at it. If you look at this file and I load it here, right? Do you see how many requests there are?
Yeah.
That's weird, right? Because in the log you only see one request. In here you see a lot. Why? If you go open this view page source, you will see all of these things. Each of this is a request to the server. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Each of this is a request. Then you're like, whoa, that's a bit inefficient, right? When your site's in production, some people move all the requests to your JavaScript file and CSS file to a thing called CDN, Content Delivery Network, because these files are saved sort of static. Every time you visit a page, it's the same. So what happens? You put it somewhere else and then load it from there. Okay?
isn't the purpose of a CDN to like store it on a server that's closer?
There are many reasons. One is that first it offload the, all the requests there. A CDN is able to handle a lot more requests. So when you have 1 million, right? Each one request here, you already see there are like one request to this local host. There are like 30 or more requests to this, and a lot of this can be put in on a CDN. Right, so the CDN can handle for one request to your Rails server, a CDN can handle the other 30. Right, it doesn't need any logic. It's just store the files and return to you. Then another thing is, it's CDN because it's specialized in handling that. So you can hit 1 million requests, and it's actually very fast. There are different ways you can cache it. So if you're the browser, I'm the CDN. Sometimes you don't even need to visit me twice. It cache on your server, and sometimes you visit me and I give you the cache version, and then the server sometimes tell the CDN, hey, remove the cache or change to a different files. Normally you don't need to remove the cache, you just upload a new file, point to a new URL. So then the CDN, they optimize because you provide this for the entire world. You optimize, you have a server in Singapore that maybe serves all the websites in Singapore. All the users in Singapore who access your website. So Amazon, for example, may put images on the Singapore CDN. Does it make sense?
Well, how about the connection is very slow? When it's slow, like can get the image, the static part from the CDN.
Well, if the internet's slow, normally CDN already has better accessibility with you than your Rails server on Heroku or somewhere else. So if it's slow, it's still the CDN is the easiest one for you to get content. If the internet is slow, getting it from your Rails server is even slower. Sometimes it's the same. Sometimes your Rails server is faster if it's closer to the user, right? Depending on the routing. But what happens is, you should ask yourself why. What happens if I keep serving all these files from my Rails server? It's not that bad. So the ultimate thing on production is on CDN, right? But right now, you see, the log only showed this much, and I have like so many requests. Who knows why?
Aren't some of them like files that don't change?
Some of them, yeah, some of them get cached. Do you guys see this? Some of these things. From memory cache. So the time taken is 0. And from this cache. So some of these, this is from like our plugin. This is from our index file. This is from some of the Chrome extension or something like that, or the iframe. So, but then you can see where they come from. Now, if you scroll up, I'm gonna quit out of this one. If I scroll up here, do you guys see this? I think it's just some deprecated. Okay, I think this is fine. All right. Now, when you access this, click on this. Let's look at the log. Okay, I click on this guy, tether.js, like application. Where is it? Application.css. Yeah, click on it. You don't see it here, right? This is the version that combine all your CSS. The Rails app reads this. You don't see it here. Why? So Rails doesn't display this anymore. In the past, they display it. So then people say, well, this is too noisy. When I render this page, there's so many lines of code. So then people created this gem called quiet assets. I think Dan may know this, right? Quiet assets. So it's just quiet. Like these are asset files, like quiet, keep quiet. I don't need to see it in the log. But what does it mean to be quiet? So technically, what you should know is this. Normally, if you go to localhost 3000, this is home. Where does it go to? This go to home index, right? So first it go to controller, right? So this is controller. And then it render index.html, this is view, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you go to this path? Does it go to home? Go to where? Does it go to controller? No, it skipped controller altogether. Skip everything, just go straight to the file. So on production, it will look like this. Heroku, your app name .herokuapp.com/assets.application 1234 blah 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 .css like this. Okay. First, you need to know that this is the fingerprint. So every time you make changes to your file, it creates a new file name. So it's never the same. So you guarantee this file should be cached. Because so if you visit it once, you visit again on your browser, it's always faster. First, that is like a unique name, it's cacheable. If you visit this file again, it should never change, the content never change. That's just a convention, right? How does this file work? In production, it will build, remember Rails assets precompiled? Heroku runs this when you deploy. You do not run this because then later when you make changes, you forget to run it. It still uses the old files. So when you deploy to Heroku, right? This will run this, okay, and this will create new files, static file in public/assets/there. So for example, here you actually have public asset application blah 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 .css. You can try it yourself. You can try it yourself by doing Rails assets precompile. This is running the development environment. If you do it the production environment, the files will get compressed and smaller. So when you run this, you see the log, writing it, go to public assets, and these are all the files that are written. So on Heroku, all of these files exist. On localhost, we do not do anything. Why? On localhost, when you go to this page, Rails dynamically generate this file, rerun this file every time because it's development. Make sense? That's why it's a little slower, but it's okay because it's development. Your computer is fast. And how many requests can you have? Like one at a time. On server, it's slow because you start to have like 10, 20. This request has not finished and someone else comes in. How many browser tabs are you opening on localhost? Not many, right? But now you understand. This is like this whole file is like Rails has its own controller generating the assets for you. But when you go production, all of that doesn't exist. So now, because I already just run that thing, and you see I have the whole huge folder like this. It's generated all the images and everything, and you see this is all fingerprinted, right? You see application.css, and even more beautiful, it generates all the GZ. You see G, right? It's gzip. So by web protocol, HTTP, like if you download, if it's the zip version, it unzip. This is very important for your CSS and JavaScript files because they're all text. When you zip a text file, it's like 10 times smaller. So that's better. So you see different ways to optimize your server, right? First, if I do it the normal way, when you start out your fun project, you go access the file directly. You have a style.css, right? But when you build a real application, then it has to put somewhere and it has to compress it. Yeah? And in this case, it also combines all your CSS file into one file. Combine all your JavaScript file into one file. That makes sense here too, right? So everything that this does is called the asset pipeline. Rails asset pipeline is responsible for your single application.css, but it looks like this big thing, right? It looks like this application blah 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 blah. And then there's application.js. Remember in your CSS you have the import statement? Then all of those files will be combined into this. We use the SAS syntax. We don't use the sprocket syntax. There's another require syntax in CSS. I told you guys not to use it. It's not as good. .js, you have the require, right? In your JS file. Does anyone remember the require thing?
Yeah.
Alright, so application. Yeah, so all of that here, it put all the files in here, it's all required a single file. So for a while, Rails, people love it. Man, I built an app and I can create as many CSS files as I want, JavaScript files, it just go to one place. Love it. Why? When you load the page, it loads the whole file first time. Every time you visit another page, it's just loading the same application.css, application.js, so the browser is quite fast. Now some people are like, no, on this page, I don't want to load any part that is admin.css, admin.js. On another page, I need my admin.css. Some of you ask, right, how do I not load this CSS file in this action? The Rails way is that don't bother, just put everything in one. Right? Well, why do you bother? Because if you separate them, when you put on production, you will have more of this. Why do you add more? Imagine if Rails, you see this right here, application.and jQuery.tether. Blah blah blah. Because this is what development mode. So you know where to debug, right? You click on CSS and it tells you where to go. Let's go to the real site, and it's a lot faster. And look at how many queries, right? And let's look at the network tab. You still have things, but you don't, you only have one JavaScript file. There's no more jQuery, tether, blah, blah, blah. And the rest is just like font file, right? Some font file and some images. Yeah.
Okay, so can you scroll all the way up? Okay, so you see the top JS file right there? If you were to push to the server, right, the file would be given a new fingerprint, right?
Correct.
And the next time you go to this website, the browser would recognize immediately that like the JavaScript is different, and then it would pull or it would download the new JavaScript file, and then it would have to reload from, and then that would go into the memory cache, correct?
It's like that. So the HTML actually know the fingerprint of the file. When you use image_path, when you use JavaScript include tag in your layout file, it knows how to convert that into a fingerprint. So your HTML knows what exactly the fingerprint of the file to use. On localhost, it keeps the same. On localhost, if you go to this here localhost, it just keep this version. But in the past, Rails changes a little bit. In the past, it only do application.css, but in the latest Rails, it's just like this long thing. And there's .self and all this extra thing. But still, it's quite clear, right? You see the path, the name of the files, it changes based on the fingerprint. Maybe they look at the whole content, they do a SHA-has and give it a SHA string at the end of the file. So your question is, when you deploy to production, if you change any of your JavaScript, CSS, image files, when you do JavaScript, you know how you include a JavaScript file, right? When you do this, you see that here, style sheet link tag, application, it know how to do application ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4. When you do image_path, soccer.png, it knows how to link it to the fingerprint. The whole thing is under this Rails rewriting your route so that it goes under asset pipeline. Does that seem clear? Now, why do we have to understand the asset pipeline? Because people love it and then also a lot of people hate it. So there are bugs somehow, because this is like when people sometimes, the idea of loading this application thing and you write a lot of JavaScript, and in your CSS here you use a lot of import. Some people say, well, this variable over here and this variable over there cause conflict. right? Some people want to keep pages with separate JavaScript files. The application get bigger and bigger. They want to separate the logic. It's easier to maintain. It's nice to say, why not just keep a huge application.js file? It's like, okay, if your app is small. When your app is big, if you keep that one file and some team change something and then, or a lot of teams have similar code, you don't know how to remove it. When you have separate JavaScript files, you're like, I don't need this thing anymore. It deals with payment and we change our payment system. Just remove the payment.js from your HTML page and see if it breaks or not. It's much easier, right? So Rails is not very good at that, and then, well, it can. There's an assets file here. You see, under config initializer assets. So beside application.js and application.css, you can add extra files you want when you include some extra libraries. And then you can say, hey, when I push these files, I should be able to access them directly. So this happens if you have admin.js, and then you go to some file and do JavaScript include, similar to your thing here, right? Style should include like admin or something else. Yeah? If you use an active admin gem, you add it and you see that they include it separately. So that's it, to keep things more modular. Okay? So some people hate it, and then here's what happened. If you download a JavaScript library, okay, and then in that library, in the JavaScript.js file, right, whatever, let's get a library, let's say a library that's something that uses an image. Maybe a toaster library. Has anyone used it? It displays your Flash messages. Or some library that uses an image. Maybe a tooltip library. So what happens? You download this library, and in this library there's a JavaScript file, and there are some images, even CSS. But for sure in your CSS, you call your image file. In your JavaScript file, you may call the image, right? But if you use this fingerprint way, then it calls without the fingerprint. And on localhost it works, on production it doesn't. And people get really mad. Can you imagine? That's why, for a lot of JavaScript files, you have something called Rails, like, there are a lot of things that create a plugin for Rails. Here, let me see. I don't have it here. Selectize Rails. Let's see, selectize. For example, things like this. It's really silly. Someone has a JavaScript library called selectize.js, and then it doesn't work with Rails. So someone needs to create a gem so that when you include this gem, you will have the selectize plugin. So let's look at the selectize gem. It allows you to do something like this. It's like pretty cool, pretty cool stuff like that, right? It looks nicer when you input. So what exactly do people do? People create a gem, and in that gem, right? In that gem, they put that selectize file in the vendor assets. Yeah. So when you include the gem, it's like included in your project, and also the main reason, because it also has to play well with the CSS. So JavaScript and CSS play well, they know the path of each other. For example, they have this CSS need to require this other CSS, but it doesn't load it the Rails asset pipeline way. So they now have to make it load that way. So sometimes they have to go in here and make changes. Sometimes they name it to Sass, right? And then how does it work? You write it because now you can. So you clone the asset selectize.js plugin, which is CSS and JavaScript files. Go there and make some changes so it works with Rails, and then you create this gem. This gem is really simple. This gem is basically, Rails provide a way called loading an engine, and then you can dump the entire structure. It's really just super standard, and then all the vendor assets in get added to Rails. So then you start to see so many libraries like that, even like Font Awesome, Rails, Bootstrap, Rails, like all this kind of way. So that's not ideal. So some guys say enough is enough, right? Then they built something called Rails Assets. So asset management in Rails. Basically, back then, Bower was a front end. It's like a bundler, but managing your JavaScript libraries, but for front end use. Okay, if you heard of npm, that's for back end use. So if you have HTML JavaScript project, you use Bower and install and manage dependency. But now Bower is no longer as popular, so we don't really use it anymore. But these guys basically, they sort of use Bower and then and then they repackage all the front end libraries host here, so Rails can just use it without someone creating the gem for you. So then you can use jQuery that way, but you can also use Angular as like, Tether is used like that. But then instead of using a Bootstrap gem created just for Rails, you can use the Bootstrap original, just the JavaScript plugin. But then you just put it under this Rails asset. So this guy know how to go to the original JavaScript library and then use it. Yeah? So that's kind of cool. Well, this went down for a while, and then people host it again. Some people say it's good and it's bad. Just long discussion. So what's interesting is Rails 5.1. First, they removed jQuery. There's no more jQuery. Isn't that crazy? All right. Do you see jQuery here? Why is jQuery needed? Because they have something called the 16 here, jQuery underscore UJS. What is UJS? Unobtrusive JavaScript. So in the past, unobtrusive JavaScript was useful. Now no one cares. What is it? Back when you have like screen reader like Kindle, and you have some screen with like that still browsers not playing well together. So you want people to implement, and some browsers turn off JavaScript, like Internet Explorer. It's like, do you want to turn on JavaScript, right? So then they force you to basically, can you write a page that just works without JavaScript, right? And then you then add JavaScript to make the behavior better. So that's the original idea. So that's unobtrusive, right? That's just one way to think about it. The other way is, you keep CSS in the separate file. Why don't you keep your JavaScript in the separate file? So it keeps the logic better. Right? It's easier to upgrade, the way you handle your JavaScript stuff. It's very clean. This is very nice because Rails uses jQuery UJS. It's just a Rails extra JavaScript plugin that allows you to do all your link to blah 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 remote true, form for remote true. You can do your link to method delete, right? A link should be a GET request, but how does it turn into it? So you can actually see that file, jQuery UJS. It's an adapter that basically it's a gem, yeah. And in that gem, you basically have this file, Rails.js, and then you see, for example, right? It will, if you have a link and you have the data confirm, are you sure? This is how this guy's doing it. And then when you do link to delete, method delete, like remove this item, method delete, data confirm, are you sure? This one will add an alert box and then do all that magic for you. When you click on the form, you see that it's grayed out, so you cannot double click. It's because of this guy. When you click on the form, it hijack that event and say, well, don't click again, because otherwise this causes a lot of bugs, right? You see a lot of websites, do not click twice when you pay something, right? It still happens every time. Like when you make a payment, don't click twice, click and then wait, right? But Rails doesn't have that. Rails come for you by default. You can use data disable with, which is awesome. Like you can change the text to something else, like submit, and then you later disable with loading, and then you click on something, it becomes loading. So all this extra stuff, but it uses jQuery. Here, it's a jQuery plugin, right? To select items. But now jQuery is not as popular, so the newest Rails does not use jQuery anymore. Alright, so if they rewrote it in jQuery UJS, let's see, there's no longer called this, I don't know. Rails UJS. This, okay, it's like supposed to be just gem, but we'll find out. Okay, how does it work? You look at the Rails 5 setup. There's a gem up here called jQuery Rails. That gem uses, the provide this jQuery under JRUS. So it's interesting, in Rails 5.1, you can now include any JavaScript using the most popular package management. It's just like bundler, but for JavaScript. What is it?
Yeah.
Yarn. So when it's until recently, it was still npm, node package management, right? npm install, and then the React Native community become React and React Native become really popular. Angular, everyone uses npm, and then they run into problems because they don't have a file similar to gemfile.log. They just have a package.json, and then in there, just go and install whatever version you say, and then it causes problem, right? It uses certain file version. When you install the next time, it may not use the same version. The dependency management is not good. So then I think the Facebook guys, help, and then they have Yarn, and they actually asked for advice from the guy who wrote Bundler. Right? A lot of smart Ruby people go out and help the world. So Yehuda actually wrote Bundler. He also wrote Rails MERP, a web framework that was merged into Rails 3. This is it's a very, very fun story. Rails 2 was great, and MERP was a cleaner version, like lighter version, and they're like, let's merge them. And it takes them 2 years. And after that, Rails 3 was out, everyone else already like, hey, Node.js, all these cool things, and Rails 3 is just like full of bugs. And it's upgrading to Rails from Rails 2 to 3 is impossible. It was really hard. But it came up with a lot of cool things, but it makes Rails fall behind. And then Rails 4 come, and Rails 5 you have Action Cable. But still, the Rails is always behind when it comes to JavaScript and CSS. In Rails 1 and 2, JavaScript and CSS files are in your public folder. Isn't that interesting? So you can just access there. Automatically, anything in your public folder, you can go directly there. So it skipped your Rails stack. But now they put it in under assets, so you can have access to, it's called first class. So now they are just like your Ruby files. You can use variables in there. In your assets folder, app/assets, right? Any of your file, you can do application.js, you do .erb, and then you can use any Rails variable in there. You can then do Rails.config or Rails.helper. This is like all this extra thing. You can put in Rails Ruby code. So it's cool, right? But then the problem is this asset pipeline make JavaScript that you write good, but not the third-party JavaScript good. So let's see how the new Rails, right, handle it. So I'm going to create a new project.
Rails new.
So I'm going to make dear demo. I'm going to install a new Rails. Maybe check Rails version.
4.5.
So bright. Should we turn off the light so you guys can sleep better? Okay, gem
So
install Rails, right? Should I do that?
Turn up, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you can sleep better.
So much better. Alright, 5.2? No. How do you install a beta version? Let's see. No, so you need this version, right? Let me install it. Copy. Oh wait, that's not good. Gem install Rails version.
This means text long.
It will take long.
Okay, we'll see. I don't think our internet's that slow. Oh. Well, here's another problem, right? Like when you have multiple rails, it's sort of tricky.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the solution?
Delete orders.
Huh?
Delete orders.
All right. Well, I can make maybe here is my new project, right? New project. And in this new project, I can maybe say use a different Ruby version or use I don't have 2.4. I can use this version, but I can use a new gem set. So maybe nowadays you don't really need to use gem set. Bundler is good enough. But in this case, like Rails 5.1 demo, right? So I will add this file to Ruby gemset. I will say also use this version in Ruby version. So now if I go to this directory, you see that I am on Ruby 2.3.1 Rails 5.1 gemset. And then you see that there are not many gems. This is just the default. I don't even have bundler. So gem install, I can install bundler. So this is a good way to try things out. It's in a different gem set, right? Now, then I do gem install Rails because I don't have any Rails yet. Oh, no. I want I want this version.
That's so close.
So while you're there, let's think about, read about Rails 5.1 Webpack.
Well,
Right? It's funny because
I think it's 5.0.1.
no, we want this one. It's correct.
Oh.
Yeah, I hope it. Yay! This one is good. All right. So in Rails 5.1, we have first class for Webpack. So I just need the -- Webpack, and then you can install any of the extra libraries. But I want you guys to understand it. All right. So look at the left here. This is another way to create without using gem file, but use bundler. You create a project, an empty folder, create a gem file. Okay.
Yeah.
Create gem file, and then in there you do type source HTTPS Ruby gems org. You don't need Ruby version, but just gem Rails, and then you say 5.1. Right. That's another way. So while we're waiting for this guy. So what's happening? And then you say, force is like overriding existing file. When Rails new dot, it means doing the current folder. No longer you need to do the project name, app name, right? So I can do the same thing over here on the left. Yeah? And then they say that, hey, you can use it, create support for Angular, Webpack. And this whole thing is really confusing, so I want to explain and make sure we can understand first. All right, I have this Rails. Rails is a meta gem. This Rails gem, when you install it, it installs 35 gems. They already reduced it. It used to be a lot more. Once they can remove this Nokogiri, it will be amazing. The Nokogiri gem is slow. You see this now. It's stopping. It's just a lot of dependency.
What's the code really?
It's the way to parse your XML file.
Oh.
It's not easy. It's a very so there is a better gem to parse XML, but they can't get it to work with Rails yet. All right, so I have Rails. Okay, Rails new, right? Dot. We want database is yeah. So you can do data is what PostgreSQL, right? And then now in Linux, you know that you can either do the short version -d or the long version database equal blah. So it's like that. These two are the same, right? -d take an input and this one take It's like that. You see it quite often. So here we have Webpack. Okay? And I think that's it.
Wow.
Well, you can do -T, capital T to skip the test folder. There may be a way to generate with RSpec, I'm not sure.
So Webpack is like all the JavaScript.
So Webpack is a tool that does what similar to asset pipeline.
Yeah.
So what does it do? You can have many JavaScript files, it will compile them, it can do a lot more. It can watch for changes. It even can watch for changes and then reload your page so you don't have to. It's called, yeah, so in Rails you can use live reload. It means every time you change the page it can reload the page, right? So that's called live reload. There's hot reloading. What is hot reloading? It's hot, it's like even better. The page doesn't need to be reloaded, but it just make the changes without reloading the page. So it's hot.
That's weird.
That's pretty cool, right? Sometimes, yes, some certain pages you might want to refresh, but hot reload make your development a lot faster. So now there's a problem. A lot of people will not understand this. It's so hard. Like, look at all these new files, like Webpacker install, and then you see config Webpack, Webpack/configuration.js, development.server. What the fuck? I need another development server? Yes, you do. And then go to all this extra thing down here, like how to compile your assets, like loaders. You see a lot of things, and then you see all this new thing, all this fancy looking weird symbols. What is that? So enter bundler's friend. This is Yarn, and of course because it's in JavaScript world and JavaScript move very fast, so people make it really beautiful. So Yarn add something is very beautiful compared to look at all these fancy things. So you see Yarn add. This is right now Yarn just what does it do? We have the bundler bundler gem file here. A lot of people voted to change gem file into another file. Like I don't know, why is it called gem file? Why is it gem file.log? Why is it on this root folder? People argue all the time, but eventually they keep it. So gem file.log. Now look, there's a yarn.log here, and then there's a package.json here. Exactly it. Okay. Now, because Rails write the UJS library, remember UJS just now? The unobtrusive JavaScript, like doing all the data remote, data confirm, and now the Rails write it without jQuery because now all the browsers have good DOM API. DOM, right? So that's cool. So it means if you need jQuery, what do? In the past, you used the jQuery Rails gem.
Yes.
But it's a freaking JavaScript library. You can do yarn add jQuery. So it uses jQuery directly and it put into your code base. That's cool? Question?
So Rails is still using jQuery, it's just storing it differently?
It doesn't. It's optional now. In the past, it's required.
But if we use Yarn and Yarn is...
If you do this, then you can still use jQuery in your project. So now let's look at the structure here. You see a new file called package.json. Then you see something called node modules. That's npm stuff. So technically you can use npm install or yarn. It's the same thing. Now in node modules, oh, it's too big. It has all the JavaScript libraries that you need. This is something that it's a bit crazy, right? So many, right? So each of these library does a little thing. And in Ruby is where are the files? Where are the gems? In Ruby, bundler doesn't put your Ruby libraries in your folder. It put it elsewhere. You can make it put in your folder. You can make it like unpack into your vendor folder if you want, but it's not the default. When you deploy to Heroku or other places, they will install inside that folder. That's on production. So it's easy to get there and it's contained in one project. However, let's look at the gem file, right? And let's look at any gem. Give me any gem. I'll look at this, maybe Puma gem, right? Where is it? Where's Puma? You actually say bundle show Puma, and you see that it's put within this Rails. It's just passed through a gems, Ruby gems, and then so that this can be reused between your projects. But npm doesn't do that. If you reuse, you install it as a global. npm install -g, that's for global. So Ruby has a different convention, okay? So this, of course, doing it saves a little storage, right? Everyone will use the same Puma gem if you use the same Ruby version and the same gem set.
Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So some people like to use the gem set same name as the project name. And we're like, some people like it, wow, and then you're like, this is stupid because then you have to reinstall this thing every time. Might as well put it in this folder. Right? So gem set becomes not as useful anymore because bundler is good enough. The gem file is good enough. Yeah? So yarn now is like yarn.log. Actually, remember the node modules thing? Yarn.log contain all those libraries, JavaScript libraries with the version number. It's locked there. Yeah? So some people look at let's look git ignore. You see this?
Yeah.
Look! Node modules not pushed.
Yeah.
So when you git pull, you have to do bundle install and yarn. Yeah. I think like npm install yarn. Is it yarn install? I forgot.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe just type yarn really. So that's cool. Let's look at the project. So I'm gonna add everything. First commit. Okay. And I'm gonna just look at app asset JavaScript. And application.js. This is going to be really confusing. Are you ready to be confused? Alright, first is UJS, that's cool, right? How does it work with the UJS thing? Let's look at the gem files. Is there a J? Let's look at the gem. There are a lot of changes you see. You still have SAS, the same. You now have Webpacker. You have Coffee Rails, but there's no more jQuery Rails version, right?
Why doesn't even have bcrypt?
Oh, this is so short.
No bcrypt.
Yeah. Oh, bcrypt? I think bcrypt. Yeah, bcrypt's still here. All right. So it's cool. Now, okay, you know that now there's this without jQuery, still turbolinks and tree. Okay, tree. Okay, so I have channel and I have cable.js. That's cool. That looks the same, except no jQuery. And let's go look at the application layout. Style sheet include. That looks the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's run Rails.
OS.
Rails db create. Rails server. Oh wait, I could close the server over here.
Don't you need to migrate?
Huh?
Don't you need to migrate it?
No need. There's nothing there.
Alright.
And then of course you can do Rails generate controller home index action.
Okay.
And update the roots to. This is root.
This is like week 1.
Yeah, this is like week 1. Except a few things will blow our mind. Alright, this guy. Right? And then you look at page source. Okay, everything looks the same. There's one problem. I think this gem is still like. There's a problem. It creates this Webpack, a bunch of Webpack file. Look at this. There's a JavaScript folder in app.
Oh, that's weird.
There's another application.js. Right? Do you see that?
Yeah.
So this is all about using JavaScript libraries. So then in here, there's a hello world from Webpacker. All right. So if I go in here and I load this file and refresh, I don't see hello world. Something is wrong. It's not running this file. Okay. So technically, there is a JavaScript include. You need to do this JavaScript pack. Whoa, what is a pack? So you actually need to update your layout to do this.
Yes.
Right? JavaScript, what?
Tag.
Pack, tag,
Counter.
application.
Oh.
Remember this thing is in, right? So let me look at the Webpacker. Now, you can, so when you read this, it will be pretty confusing, but you see, I just add, right, in your application layout, let's add this application guy, okay? And then you just do this, Alright. Rails doesn't know how to load this file. And then you have to understand that you need another server to serve what? Your JavaScript, the stuff managed by Yarn. So it's in here. You have something called Webpack and Webpack Dev Server and Webpack Watcher. So Webpack, if you run Webpack, it will compile your file. So Webpack. If you want run Ruby, so you see it will compile it, right? And then there will be a new the application JS is built based on all these files you put in the packs. Remember where the packs are? JavaScript packs here. Okay. JavaScript pack. Now Webpack just pack everything together, and they also have a manifest.json similar to Ruby. In your public asset folder, there's a manifest.json. This JSON contains the list of all the fingerprinted files, so Rails know where they are. Okay, so that's not cool. I get this, and it generates the files. So then you see that it, and then if you load this, it works, right? But sort of like, it will still need, because it's under development, it will try to find this file, and then so there, what you want to do is, well, you can do bin/webpack watcher. It means every time you make changes, it will compile. Yeah, so it's like watching you change in your file. So there's a warning here. Webpack Dev Server is currently enabled. So what does it mean? It's preferred. There's a version called Webpack Dev Server. When you run this, these are all the files that some libraries is used. When you run this, it just sit there and also run the Webpack server for you. So now, hello world from Webpacker, right? So how does it work? Go to view source. How do I view source? There's a here localhost 8080. Whoa! So there's another server on 8080. Yeah.
What?
So Rails now, people like, come on, man. They're like, you use both asset pipeline, which is the thing over here, the line up here, and you use 8080, like another server for your what? JavaScript.
Yeah.
And this is very confusing because it's very early days of 5.1. So then DHH says, well, you put your app, things you want to tinker with the DOM, make some changes, display some things. It's under app assets, it's easy to migrate to. You can keep all your stuff like that. But if you're going to build single page app like stuff, like React component, more complicated stuff, then put it under app/JavaScript. If you do all these little things like display here and there, all the stuff you guys been doing is under app/assets/JavaScript, right? /file name. So just know that there are two things here. Here's the cool part. This is the server here, right? You need, for this to work, you need to run a Webpack server, right? Okay, so here's the cool part. So I go here and I save. You guys see stuff change here?
Yeah.
So let's say your home page index here, right? What if I use jQuery, right? Now I can't because there's no jQuery. So you can say document.get element by ID. I can change right here. Maybe I change this file to ID, page title, right? Save. I have to reload. Then this thing is page title over here, and then without jQuery, then you have to do document.get element.id page title, and then you can do inner HTML equal what's up. Yeah. So change this line to this. What if I have this line, right? You can just do that. And if I refresh, why? Well, it's run too early. So I'm gonna put this at the bottom of the page.
Yes.
You don't, right? So let's change. What's up? Here's the cool thing. I do nothing on the left hand side, but on the right hand side, my friend, and I save. Ooh. So imagine when you build your React app, everything's all loaded like that. Why? Why does it work like that? Because this guy opened a link to this
it has another.
down here, and then this server is hooked with there's some extra JavaScript that basically when it changed,
It's automatic.
it's automatically refreshed. This is nice magic, right? But now we have to understand the structure a little bit.
You know the magic.
So remember, you can run either Webpack and Watcher. So I may write it here with Webpack. All right. You can use either. You use two things: Bean Webpack. You can use Webpack Watcher, and then which run the Webpack dev server. So it under this config/webpack here, there's a development server.yaml. So you say restart Webpack dev server if you want to make changes. So if you say changes to false, it no longer auto refresh. It doesn't use Webpack dev server. It will rely on the current file, and the current file is automatically generated. This is like calling Rails asset pre-compile every time you make your changes. That's step number one. Step number two here is like it's like calling that and then refresh the browser for you. These are just libraries that this is a separate JavaScript library. Yarn add Webpack dev server. That's it. So everything is yarn in there. Yeah? So let's look at the file structure a little bit. So I keep this because I really like the hot loading stuff, right? I keep this in the bottom. I think that makes sense because then I have access to all my elements. Yeah? Other Rails stuff, asset pipeline is kept here. Is for turbo links. So stuff is in the head is only loaded once until you refresh the browser, but it's only there. And then when you go to each page, it's still there. Because the page is like, that's why if you do set interval, it's dangerous, right? You go to another page, that JavaScript still runs. Unless you stop it. So it's quite dangerous. Yeah. So, but down here in body, every time you run any page, it will load this part again. So maybe it works well for your React app. Okay. So with that, we're like, it's cool, but this Rails is not ready yet. I want to use my Rails 012 app, right? So let's do it. Let's upgrade our app. So I'm gonna upgrade. So remember this thing because I do Rails assets precompile. Let's upgrade. What gem version, Rails version do I have right now? Gem file. Oh, it's this over here. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter what Rails version. We can install the Webpack gem ourselves. So you can just install it like this, just to use the latest version. So I'm going to install like down here and run bundle install. Remember, this is Rails 5.0.1. 1 or 2, I don't care. Right? Install this first. So for your Rails app, you can. This is the recommended way. To try it, allow you to understand things better. Your current Rails app, just create a new Rails app, right? The latest version 5.0.1. Yeah? And then you just add this gem. After you have this gem, check it out. Then you do bin/Rails Webpacker. It gives you this sort of syntax. So you can look at the the gem give you this generator, right? So you can have bin/Rails and you can do install. Remember Webpacker install and set up Webpack with Yarn, right? So what does it do? You now can try to understand. Okay, there's a whole. This is a combined file, and then there are some executable. Webpack dev server, Webpack watcher, Webpack. Again, Webpack dev server is one way to use it. The other way is just to use watcher, which run Webpack every time something is changed. There are advantages and disadvantages. Just stick with the hot loader for now. This way, by the way, doesn't use localhost 8080. It uses the same localhost 3000, one server. The first way, because it uses second server, then now it can do the hot and live reload.
This means that when I use the left server, I don't need to relog my browser
correct.
when
No
I
need.
change the code.
Correct. Well, only code in the Webpack server folder, Webpack folder. Rails code you still need to. So next, you see that there's a bunch of stuff in config/Webpack. Some of it over time you will understand. Here's another cool thing. It used Babel, and you can actually. Do you know what Babel is? It's a transpiler. Do you know compile? Like C code compile to machine?
Yeah.
What if I have a transpiler? I could compile JavaScript to JavaScript. But you don't compile, you just change. So it's called trans, right? So it's using the latest JavaScript. You can write your latest JavaScript, which looks like CoffeeScript, some of it, and it transpile into the old JavaScript that can run on your browser. All the JavaScript projects use this because it allows you to use JavaScript the new way with all this like arrow syntax and cool stuff. Like you can do a variable within a string and a template and all this. If you do React project, you have to learn this stuff. React actually include JavaScript, but JavaScript, what's the real name of JavaScript? Yeah, ECMAScript. ECMAScript, and you have ECMAScript 5, ECMAScript 6, ECMAScript 2015, which is the same as 6, and 2015 plus, because every year they come up with new things now. It's too much to learn, right? So bubbles, you sort of just add that together. Okay, hey, but now we have jQuery still, right? We have jQuery. We just use this, I have these a lot of libraries, not as many as this now, right? Are we ready to, let's look, not as many, okay. I think still a lot, huh? So many JavaScript libraries. All right, so you see it adds, right? Install all the JavaScript dependency. So you say yarn, there's a bin/yarn. Rails provide all this executable in the bin folders called bin stubs, and it knows the right path to the gem. So yarn is it's like a gem, right? It's an executable. So it can now run all this. It's like calling bundler, right? Okay, so each of these you see there's a Webpack module, npm, a Webpack merge, and all these extra things. So that's cool. As you can see why, over here they explain that, hey, if you use Webpack server, then these files will provide advanced Webpack features such as hot replacement. If you change anything in a module, it replaces the whole thing. It's hot, right? It's like it's replay in place. Now here's a problem. If you use Webpack dev server and Rails server, when your friend work with you, they will be confused. They forget to run the Webpack dev server and it doesn't work. How do you solve this problem? Enter Procman. Who here knows what Procman is? So Procman, Proc profile, but yeah, Foreman. So Foreman is like a gem. So basically, you can install Foreman. It's kind of weird, but there are many ways to install Foreman. Foreman, basically, then you create a proc file, like process file, right? You see this, come on, you see this in your Heroku thing. Yeah? So you have a web dyno, and then how did it build Rails server start, right? Server, right? And then I told you guys you can create a release process, then the Rails DB migrate, always migrate when it's pushed to Heroku. Heroku understand this.
Yeah.
Automatic. So now you can do Webpack. And what? Then you run like bin / Webpack dev server. Something like this. Yeah? So if I just have these two right now, right? Webpack and this. Close. Gem install Foreman. Check this out. And then you can do what? Foreman start. So before we start, look for a proc file. Uh-oh. No, it's not part of the gem file. Add it to gem file. Okay. Hey, no, it's not. It's wrong. Let me try to see. Up here, find active undefined method. This for. Okay, that's not cool. Rails 5.1 Foreman. Let's see if someone did it. Did someone mention it? Foreman? Nope. So you can create proc file. And here's another thing that I was going to show you is that proc file on Heroku is different. So don't change this proc file, but keep it for dev, right? For example, these guys say, oh, you use like bundle exact Rails and then like this, yeah. So either you use a watcher or you use hot loading. I'm not sure if I did the wrong syntax. Let me see. Maybe call it hot. Rails server, right? bin / Foreman start. Okay. Huh? I mean, this is the same bundle exact Rails server. I think I need to specify, let's say, Foreman start proc file. Yep, let's add it to gem file if it's needed. Okay, bundle exact Foreman start. All right, here's a beautiful thing. You guys see the log? It looks exactly like Heroku log. There's a different color for each thread. Remember Heroku log?
Yeah.
This is the reason they use something similar to Procman, Foreman.
Foreman.
So now on your server, you may now use something like that. Yeah. So there's a reason why this fail. Who knows why it fails? The port is already used. Yeah. So I cancel these two things and I go back to this. Oh, I think this now. Yeah. So you can start or you can say specific. You have a procfile.dev, right? Let me just close this. Turn off position. Where is it? Turn hiding on. All right. So you can specify the file name or not. So ideally, turn it into a dev file. So now I'm gonna do it the proper way. Move your proc file into a procfile.dev. Okay. Okay. And then you run bundle exact Foreman start file procfile.dev. And then you have the two server process ID like this, and they just run together nicely. And then you have your project. It's still loading, so let's try again. Should huh? Oh, it's 5,000. Well, funnily, that's a default port Foreman gives. port variable, you can change it. How do you change it? Edit your profile, right? Here you can say, you know, port equals, you know, port, or you can just say 3000 all the time like this. Okay? Now here's another thing. You're like, man, now someone work with me need to remember this syntax. This syntax, that's crazy. Like, how do I remember this line, right? So you copy this whole line and you put it where? Ring. Oh yeah, that's another way. You say bin/server, bin/server, paste it in here, okay? And then you go to your README file,
Copy it.
and then say, you know, run. How to run? Just run bin/server instead of Rails server, right?
Oh wow.
Instead of Rails server,
OS.
right? Run this. So here's the beautiful thing. Again, you can now run Redis too.
Oh.
Remember Redis? You can even run it, right? Redis server. If of course some people run Redis on their computer just like PostgreSQL, then you don't need it. But then you can have Scikit. You need Scikit, right? Scikit, bundle, exec, Scikit. Then they always run all of them, just like your Heroku environment. Make sense? So now one more thing, you need to change mod, add an executable to server. So from now on, start your project, you run this. Right? So obviously because I already run it. So I think, oh, here's another problem. I quit, but it doesn't know that I exited. It's annoying, huh? So like, it will say, well, this is occupied. So I'm not sure what the thing. There must be another way to kill. I think it's under this temp PID thing. I don't know, where are they? Must be. It's sort of kill. So after foreman. That's not that's stupid. There's a way, but I forgot now. Supervised format. Technically, it's supposed to know how to kill it, but I'm not sure. So let's look at all the things open on port 50. I forgot the syntax again. List all the files that processes that run port. Huh?
Maybe UPS.
Huh? Something like port. Let me see. Oh, I don't have enough. I don't know. It's like this. TCP, ALS, OAuth, TCP 5000, and then it's not loading. So there's something else. 8080, right? Hey, so why is it not working? Oh, maybe my syntax was wrong, no? Did I do a wrong syntax? Invalid argument. Oh, shit. Yeah, this like P thing. Oh, it's wrong. So it should be like that. Silly, right? So obviously you can make it more powerful by changing it to port, right? And then execute at port. So anyway, keep this 3000, make it and then you run this. If sometimes, I think in this case, format, quit, exit them, okay. All right, all works. Let's add React.
Finally.
Hey, I mean, React, you can learn yourself. This part is just, we can ask questions and see how it works. So you now understand you can use format, you can, run this whole thing on this project, both combined like this. It's nice. Then now I'm going to add React, right?
Oh wow.
So I think bin/Rails. Sometimes you do bundle exact Rails, sometimes you just write Rails. bin/rails is the most sure way, just like bundle exec rails. Sometimes you write rails and may go to the wrong files. So bin/rails webpacker. Let's install React, yeah? Is there a React thing here? Oh, here. Install React. Oh, wait, before we do that, let's commit everything first. This is important as you learn, right? So before this, I check out a new branch. I don't, this is try the Rails 5.1. Alright? That's my new branch, and I will commit, added what? Webpacker. Correct?
Yeah.
Now next is we're gonna do bin/rails webpacker install what? React, and see what files it creates. So cool, right? Look at all this shape piece of cake. Ta-da! And resolving packages. So what does it do? There's a bubble RC. There's an extra config. What syntax you want to write your JavaScript in? And then there's a hello React. And then there's a loader. So these are the extra plugins. So React require these guys. Your JSX, right? The library that React uses to parse your DOM HTML inside your JavaScript, and then all this extra stuff. All right. So let's look at Git status. Yarn.log. What happens? You see in package.json, there's a React package here, right? And then in yarn.log, it's even more clear. It used like this ASAP package, but like its exact version. Before this, right? Someone can replace the version online, and you can actually have a security problem. I push some code online, same version. Bundler doesn't let you do that. So here, do you see all this fingerprinted stuff? Now it has to be it has to check exactly right. If you make changes to the content, you cannot, make me use your new version. So Yarn is powerful, and also so much faster. Yarn is so much faster than npm install. So this is cool, and it looks beautiful too. So okay, that's nice, right? And let's look at the structure of my new code. Remember, we have app JavaScript folder. There's a new hello React. So note my tree here, right? In JavaScript folder, there's nothing else. It's a packs folder. So that's why you see JavaScript/packs, right? So it goes straight into that. And there's a hello React. So what is React, guys? So let's create a file, routes. I'm gonna go to maybe try, right? Go to try and homes try. Sounds good? And then that go to home controller try.html.erb or slim whatever, right? So I say h1 hello, I'm trying, right? And then we go to localhost/try. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, wow, that one's nothing crazy, right? Nothing special. But now we learn one thing. We learn one thing. You can include any of these files separate. You can include them separately. So I can include hello React. I can include in this file right here. So maybe what is it called? JavaScript pack tag what? Hello React. Yeah? Alright. Why? Well, is it running? Do we have the server running? Let's try. I don't know.
It's not running.
Is anything working? Everything working there? Development server is true. And then we need the JavaScript. Alright, what happens? Because I added the React thing, then you need to restart the Rails server because it did not load the React JavaScript library yet. Okay, just like when you run gem install and you have to bundle install, then you have to restart Rails server, right? Now everything changed. Let's look at it. What happens? Import React. Great. So we'll learn what React is. Import React DOM. These are two things you need. React DOM. React is like this. It will convert your. It allows you to display a page here in terms of components. Okay. So you can create a component. A component is like your view partial. Okay. So let's say this is a component. Hello this is HTML, right? Hello is similar to your div, but HTML5 allow you to have any name. So you have hello. Okay? Name, React, and then close. So that's simple, right? It's like div, or h1. This is just one element. This is an element, right? So that's a DOM element. Make sense?
Yeah.
So React provides this thing called DOM render. What it does here is that when the DOM is loaded, this is similar to jQuery, document, ready, right? Or turbolinks onload, right? Turbolinks. Now look at this. Document body, append child. It just add this whole element, line 22, to the current document. This works great if it's empty and you no longer have to write any code, and you can just use React and insert that code. What do I mean by that? So I will render. Let's see. Let's go to controller. Let's have the try action, and I just say layout false. Right?
Yeah.
So when layout false, it's sort of it's basically nothing, right? The code now is just your asset pipeline doesn't exist. You only have your this simple as this. Hello, right? I'm trying, and then this is the script, but then this is a source. You see, hello, I'm trying. You see down here. What? Here, right? And then JavaScript tag.
Yeah.
But when you include this, it will run, right? And what happened? Then it will run and become hello React.
Right.
Yeah? So because you click on this line, it will basically, this line is the whole React code, and it will run the React code. Okay? So now you can start writing your app entirely using this. So let's see if I can do that. So this is hello, right? Name React. Where's the hello component? Hello is a component. You create your own DOM name.
Yes.
Yeah? And then in this hello, hello is a component here. And this component is what? It can do like props.name here, but it just means that you can pass variable into the component.
Uh-huh.
So you have a variable line 13 here, you pass in the variable, say David, right?
So hello David.
Right. Yeah, that's the default. So that's a prop. So it's a div hello David div.
Mm.
That's the default. But when you use it, you say, well, actually my prop is React.
So it false.
Then it becomes
React.
React.
Yeah.
So if I just have hello by itself,
So it's not hello David.
like that, then what do you think happened?
Hello David.
Hello David. Do you see I did not refresh the browser?
Yeah.
So now I can start coding even better. Maybe inside here, I can do like hello David, but maybe input type text. Maybe value. Also props. Same thing. Props. Name. Like that, right?
Okay.
And I save. You see stuff over here. Basically, make it a component.
So does it change automatically if you change the name?
Well, then you have to include an event. You include an event. Then when you change this, it will change it.
You need
The
the
props.
email listener like jewelry.
So it's like that. So you can say like on click do this. So just like that. But now you put all the JavaScript and styles together in one component. So each component can be in your own thing and you put all of them in the components folder. Does it make sense? So there's props. Props mean property you pass into the element like this. And name down here.
Yes.
Right? For example, you can say name is David. I know let's say React. But you can say another thing like input another name. I don't know. Input type. I don't know. Say friend. I don't know. Right? So it's say Jason. So down here you can say props dot friend Jason. Yeah. So there's also you provide a value prop to a form field without an onChange handler. This will render read-only field. If you do an onChange, let's do onChange. What happens when you do onChange? OnChange. Then here you can pass in a function. So you can say diff dot handle change. Okay. So what happens? I have onChange. Now this is actually
Supposed to have
uh-oh. It's quite funny because React changed quite fast, so now they even have deprecation. They access prop types, use this blah blah blah. I'm gonna use the React main React. Nice. Here, so the Rails code unfortunately isn't good enough. So let's get started with this. It looks like this. Hello world. It's the same, right? Normally in a React app, you tend to have something called you tend to have something called root, just like this. Div id root. That's it. And then you just call DOM get element by ID, and then it render there. It's the same as this document.body append at the end. This is a better way. You say, well, put it inside my root component only. So what is React? It allows you to create components and then it insert into this part of your page. Okay? Inside this div. So why is it special? There's some libraries that you use like Vue or AngularJS or any Ember, anything. They all use two-way binding. It means if you have a variable here and then you make changes, it will automatically update on other parts of the page. That's because why? The value you change, it will display back outside. So this is binding two places. So let's say you have another input. Someone make changes down here, it will change back up there. React is different. It's one way. Every time you have a make change, it has a change handler, and it will render the whole component again. Then you're like, isn't that stupid? It's not, because it rendered the component again, but it's not in a text file. It's in a DOM tree. It's a virtual DOM tree. So it's called virtual DOM. It means now my new version is like this, and your new version and your previous version is like this. It will diff them. It know what changed, and it will send the JavaScript to only change that little thing in your document. It doesn't change the whole document. So it's fast. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And okay, so maybe we can build something by following. This is a better syntax. So something like, I want a counter argument, a counter like counter example. Why don't we take a 5 minutes break? You guys are like, and then we just talk for 10 minutes and then we'll finish an example, yeah?
Yes.
You guys are really tired already.